Baseball is officially back, and that means the start of the season on Rocky Top. The reigning national champions will look to become the first back-to-back national title winner since the early 2010s. Joining us to help break it all down, he's one of the best in the business when it comes to talking all things Tennessee, and a good friend of mine. Eric Cain joins the show. Eric Cain of Volquest.com, Locked On Vols as well. Again, you can find all of his work there. Does a fantastic job. Eric, what's going on, man? Appreciate you taking the time. Really excited to chat with you because the last time you and I were talking baseball on the airwaves, we were talking College World Series in Omaha, man. Excited for first pitch and excited to get it going on Rocky Top. How you been?
Hey, I've been good. Exciting. The weather's a little all over the place here in Knoxville. It's cold. Now it's kind of sleeting and raining and all that. The stadium's a mess, but with winning comes progress, and the stadium's going to look really, really good here before we know it. But, yeah, I'm excited, man. It's, baseball season for these winning programs. I mean, it's, early February you're over there, and if you're blessed enough through the end of June, and then it's transfer portal season, and then it's fall ball, and so you got this little bit of a break here around Christmas, but ready to get back after it and see what this team looks like.
Yeah, and certainly with winning, Eric, comes expectations. We were talking about that with some other sports there in Knoxville, but certainly no stranger to it on the diamond. Again, Tony Vitello and company looking to go back-to-back, and again, Eric, you win that first one, right? You win that first national title in program history. You'll celebrate a little bit, but the fan base immediately turns to, all right, we're going to run it back and do it again. Talk about just the offseason, I guess, that's been for Tennessee baseball since winning the first national championship. And, I mean, expectations coming in this year. And I know what they are. They are to go back-to-back. I've gotten a good laugh, Eric, out of a lot of the Tennessee fans who I love, but the preseason rankings coming out, Tennessee's around third or fourth, and I'm seeing posts of disrespect. We're being disrespected or slept on. Again, I say all that to say, Eric, you would expect it, but expectations are obviously high on Rocky Top this year.
Yeah, this fan base is second to none. I mean, this fan base is incredible. They pay my bills. They allow me to do, what I do for a living, and I'm so forever thankful. I love these fans. I grew up in East Tennessee. I grew up going to Tennessee games. I'm one of them. But also, it's the expectations are it's never enough, right? And Rick Barnes' second Elite Eight appearance ever in program history last year, and Tennessee basketball stumbling a little bit right now, and there's fans outraged about that just because you expect better. You expect the production to be there, and you expect the wins to be there, and then that's going to be. We know about football. It's going to be no different story with baseball as well. And it's funny when you have these conversations early in the season, mid-season, even entering postseason, it's like, the expectations, people say, well, World Series appearance or, final series or national chance. It's like, well, as well as anybody, it's so incredibly difficult in college baseball, especially in a league like the Southeastern Conference, because it's such a grueling schedule week in and week out. Same with football and basketball right now, but baseball maybe even more so at certain points in times, right? And so you make it through that SEC schedule. Then you got to, go through a regional, and that's tough. Then you got to switch formats, go to a super. Then you got to go to Omaha and do both. And if you can, climb out of both, you're the national champion like Tennessee was last year. So I always try to, temper expectations a little bit. I always try to, proceed with caution. But at the end of the day, this team's been to Omaha 3 of the last 4 seasons. This team has won the SEC 2 of the last 4 seasons. I mean, the expectation is Omaha. And you're getting to that point, and credit to Tony Vitello and credit to his staff and this program. That's the expectations now. And this is a very new-look Tennessee team. Fans are going to have to learn a lot of new names and a lot of new figures and all that. But typical with Tony Vitello, Frank Anderson, Josh Elander, Ross Kivitt, his staff, a lot of talent. Guys turned down the draft, turned down deals to come here, junior college arms. 5 or 6 of them that are going to contribute for Tennessee this year. The excitement's there. It's going to be very much figure it out the first month and a half of the year. So it's not going to be a finished product, but it's a marathon, not a sprint. You want to be hitting your stride, SEC, middle SEC, end of SEC play, and that's what Tennessee's going to be shooting for.
Eric, before we dive into the nuts and bolts of this team, the lineup, pitching staff, everything in between, I want to ask you first about the schedule and kind of get your thoughts from an SEC perspective on the chatter, Texas and Oklahoma joining the league. Obviously, from a football perspective, we spent so much time talking about that. But, from baseball as well, you beef up the conference. We know about the history and tradition at Texas. Skip Johnson at Oklahoma has done a really good job. They were in the national championship series against Ole Miss a few years ago. Tennessee avoids both of them, which I think is really, really interesting. Again, the season will get going Friday, February the 14th against Hofstra, but most notably in non-conference play, because a lot of teams in non-conference schedule pretty light. Tennessee plays in the Astros Foundation College Classic, so you'll play teams like Oklahoma State, who's really good, Rice, who's got a really good program, Arizona, who's a team that a lot of folks are kind of the hot button team to get to Omaha. Your overall thoughts, Eric, on the schedule that is laid out for Tennessee? I mean, it seems, I don't want to say favorable because the SEC is a gauntlet, but and then your thoughts on Texas and Oklahoma joining the league. Again, it's beefing up what's already the best conference in the country, especially when it comes to college baseball.
Yeah, it just means more. It doesn't matter if it's football, basketball, it's baseball, it's Lady Vols, and it's women's basketball. It truly does just mean more. And adding the quality of programs of Oklahoma and what it brings, football, basketball, baseball, softball, incredible. We know about Texas and where it is in football right now. We know about Texas and baseball and the history, the proud tradition of that program. So, yeah, I'm excited. It's going to be fun. Tennessee avoids both those new teams, which is great. But, of course, Tennessee's got, series at Arkansas. It's got a series at LSU. It's certainly no conference to slouch out in conference games. And Tennessee will have to be kind of ready for that, of course. Non-conference, you got an interesting couple of midweeks. Lipscomb, which is a regional team. It was a regional team a couple years ago. It'll be okay. You've got Northern Kentucky, which was in the Knoxville Regional last year, the Norse. That's going to be a late midweek game towards the end of April, so I'm excited to kind of see that. Kansas State was on the schedule last year. There's one other one that I'm not placing right now. They've
got Xavier too, who's got an insane non-conference schedule this year.
Yeah, Xavier. So overall, the non-conference schedule, and Tony kind of builds it this way. He'll never admit it, but I mean, it's light. It's always light. Allowing them to tinker with the lineup, allowing them to tinker with guys on the mound in different roles and all that, and not take a huge hit if you take a loss or whatever. So. The SEC schedule is going to be tough, as it always is. They'll be challenged a couple of times in non-conference. You mentioned the Houston weekend. I'm excited to be going to that and seeing what Tennessee looks like against Oklahoma State, Rice, and Arizona. But overall, just trying to figure all that stuff out before Florida comes to town. And hello, conference play with the Gators rolling in. It should be interesting.
Eric, let's talk about this lineup. There's a lot of familiar faces, again, from last year's national championship team. Cannon Peebles, Dean Curley, Hunter Inslee, some guys who had some really big swings of the bats to help Tennessee, again, hoist the trophy in Omaha. But, some notable faces that are missing, guys like Blake Burke, Christian Moore. My question to you is this, Eric, because I don't doubt there's talent, right? Like a guy like Andrew Fisher, the transfer from Ole Miss, he's been talked about a ton. The guy hit 20 bombs last year for the Rebels. He's probably going to fill in right where Billy Amick was. Who knows? He might take the walk-up song. They played that at the basketball game the night I was there. That's kind of become, it seems like, a tradition in Knoxville. But I'll just simply ask you this, Eric. Your thoughts on Tennessee's lineup, but the question I have, and I want to see if you can answer, how do you replace Blake Burke and Christian Moore? Because what those guys meant to that team last year, not just from a statistical standpoint, but from a leadership standpoint, a veteran standpoint. I mean, Tony V talked about it last year, right? Like guys that they had been in the trenches, like they had built Tennessee up to what it was. I think that's going to be, and just from the outside looking in, very difficult to replace beyond just a talent perspective. Your thoughts on that? Again, just what you expect from this lineup 1 through 9.
Yeah, and I know we'll get to that in a moment, but I mean, look at the mound too. Drew Beam, Kirby Connell. Yeah. I mean, like you talk about leadership on this team. Losing a lot of dudes for sure, but you do bring back a guy you mentioned in Hunter Inslee, and he had some opportunities with the MLB draft. I said NFL draft. He was a high school football player, quarterback and safety, 1A in the mid-state. And the way he took down that wall there in Omaha, but no, it was a huge win for Tennessee. He wanted to come back, with name, image, and likeness possibilities. You can make that, happen now with guys, tweener guys like him. And it was a huge win for Tennessee because you bring back a lot of production. You bring back a Gold Glover center fielder, a guy that when he's on, he can hit in the heart of your order. With a lineup, you'd either want him at 2 or maybe 5 or 6. But, there was a series at Florida last year, beginning of May, and he entered that series hitting 238, okay? And then he went off, and it was a doubleheader to finish off that series. He went off in the doubleheader, and from there on, that was a spark plug. He, hit like around 300 the rest of the way. He was, fantastic. Obviously, the plays in Omaha, so he's a guy that's just going to be instrumental in terms of production and from a leadership standpoint. Cannon Peebles is also going to be a leader on this baseball team. He was going to be the guy coming into last year. A huge addition from the portal, NC State. didn't work out, slow out of the gate. Great offseason, slow out of the gates. I don't think anybody could have entered the season hotter in preseason scrimmages than Cannon Peebles. It just didn't work out in gameplay for the most part last year. Cal Stark came on, but Cannon learned a lot of lessons, and he's the clear-cut starter at the catcher position for Tennessee. So those two guys are going to lead. Dean Curley's going to take a leadership role. But you're right. I mean, you have Blake Burke and Christian Moore, who were part-time players as freshmen, but have been everyday players as sophomores and juniors. They were a big part of what Tennessee's done the last couple of years, and that's going to be really, really tough to replace. As far as production, nobody is going to replace what Christian Moore did last year. I mean, arguably should have been the Golden Spikes award winner, should have been SEC Player of the Year. I mean, we can play the stat game all year long. Who did better in conference play and all that, but he was phenomenal. Hit a cycle in the College World Series game. Just a number of different guys are going to have to step up to the plate, no pun intended, and try to replace that production. Kind of like when Dalton Knecht left Tennessee's basketball team. Chaz Lanier was not going to be Dalton Knecht, but Chaz Lanier was going to help, and he needs to continue helping. And Zakai Ziegler needs to help, and Igor Milicic, and so on and so forth. Guys like Andrew Fisher, who comes over from Ole Miss, who you think from a power standpoint can really help in that regard. Gavin Keelan from an average, from a doubles, playing second base. He's going to help out in a big regard. Dean Curley, who hit over 10 home runs last year, but went through a stretch midway through the year where he had a power outage, and then it kind of came along in postseason play. He's got to find some more consistency. So it's going to be a challenge. I don't think you can replace a Semo and a Burke and a Tiers and a Dreiling, but it was hard to replace a Gilbert and a Beck and a Lipsius and and so on and so forth. I mean, this is Tennessee baseball. It's kind of like next man up, and I'm excited to see kind of who takes over those roles here this year.
And you mentioned, Eric, the pitching staff as well. You lose a guy like Drew Beam, who meant so much to this rotation. Kirby Connell, who is still on the staff as a coach now. So he's still in Knoxville, but what a legendary career he had. Obviously, I would probably argue the best mustache also in college baseball when it was all said and done. You pick up another transfer from Ole Miss, Liam Doyle. It looks like he might headline the rotation. Nate Snead's going to slide into there. Brandon Arvidsson, Tegan Coon's going to be another guy, a freshman, and then Marcus Phillips at the back end of the bullpen. You've got other talented arms, but like you mentioned, it kind of feels like the theme, Eric, with this team, a lot of talent, a lot of questions, and they will certainly be using the first month or so of the season in non-conference play. And again, it's not a bad thing, but there's just a lot of roles to be established when it comes for this Tennessee team, pitching staff included.
Yeah, and I think that's, where fans and, media people, myself included, sometimes we get a little bit too impatient, right? It's like, well, I want to see this now. Like is Dean Curley going to be the shortstop, or is Gavin Keelan going to be the shortstop? Like, who's going to be the second? Where are they going to play? Like, truth is, they're both going to play. They're going to flip-flop. They're both going to play a little short, both going to play a little second until they kind of settle in and kind of figure out what works the best. And, that the same way for the pitching staff. What I can tell you right now, 15 days away from opening day, is Liam Doyle is a starting pitcher on the weekend. I don't know if it's going to be Friday, so it won't be Sunday. It'll be either Friday or Saturday. Right now, I'd probably say Friday, but he is the only one I can tell you. Nate Snead makes a whole lot of sense. We know his versatility. We know for Tennessee to be the best that it can be, Nate Snead needs to be a stopper. Nate Snead needs to be utilized to come in big situations out of the bullpen, closer, whatever. But he spent the first half of the year piggybacking Xander Seacrest. He started a game in the SEC tournament. He can do whatever you need him to. So for the first weekend or two, until maybe somebody else steps up, maybe it makes sense to have Nate Snead be a starting pitcher for you. So I almost would expect that at this point. Tegan Coons, freshman, nice 3-pitch mix, going to continue to bring along that 4-pitch. Looked good the other day. I saw him in a preseason scrimmage. He's gone toe-to-toe with this lineup all fall, all winter, and he's held his own. And he's certainly going to go through some growing pains, but he's going to be a guy that's going to get a big-time shot. Which junior college arm is going to step up and really give Tennessee reason to start them? Everybody thinks it's going to be Brandon Arvidsson. Started his career at Texas, was going to, JUCO, was going to go to A&M. The coaching, or maybe it was A&M, was going to go to Texas because of the coaching change, got back in the portal. He's a guy that turned down the draft and wanted to come to Tennessee, and had a little bit of inconsistency, got banged up a little bit in fall, but I think for Brandon Arvidsson, big things ahead for him. And there's other JUCO arms, like Thomas Crabtree, one of the better JUCO arms in the country last year. Michael Sherman, you got Tanner Wiggins, Ryan Combs, younger brother of Aaron Combs. All these guys are going to have to play a role for Tanner Franklin, not a JUCO arm, coming over from Kennesaw State, 6'4", about 240, kind of a power arm there from the right side. So I'm throwing all these names out there, and I haven't even mentioned a guy like Dylan Loy who could maybe start. He's a swing man, start in the SEC tournament. I think Dylan Loy could be the Kirby Cannell moving forward, meaning soft-throwing lefty, not overpowering, but can be used multiple times out of the pen in an SEC weekend. So that's all me talking right now. We just got to see what it looks like. Liam Doyle's a starter. Nate Snead's going to pitch a whole lot for you. We don't know exactly what that looks like, probably starting to begin the year, and then kind of see what happens. You look at the top 100, freshmen in college baseball. You look at the top, 100 draft picks out of high school. I mean, Tennessee's name is littered all over those lists. So there's so much talent here. It's just kind of figuring it out. And that's going to be the exciting part for me, because I'm a baseball junkie and a nerd, but also for Frank Anderson, who spoke on it the other day. His first season was in 1983, yet he still gets super, super excited about, okay, what are we going to do today? I don't know. Well, we're going to figure it out. And that's what Tennessee's going to be doing here in February and March.
And Eric, you mentioned so many of those JUCO guys. There's going to be a ton of new faces. Obviously, the way Tony Vitello and company's recruiting, there's guys that we've never even heard of that are probably going to end up being superstars or at minimum daily contributors for this Vols ball club. Probably going to help in assisting them to make a deep run yet again. From what you've seen, Eric, because again, you're as close to this program and this team as anybody. One hitter and one pitcher that fans on the outside are completely unaware of right now that you think will become sort of household names by season's end.
Okay, one hitter, and if you're in the weeds, you know this name, but like if you're a casual Tennessee fan or a casual baseball fan, SEC baseball fan, you might not know the name yet, but you will. Again, if you follow Tennessee baseball, you know the name. But Jay Abernathy, true freshman, turned down the draft, wanted to come here to Tennessee. Tony likes to, I don't want to say reward his veterans, but he likes to give some veterans who have been in the program the first crack at trying to lock down a job. And so if Tony follows what he's done in years past, Colby Backus is going to be your starting left fielder alongside Hunter Ensley and Reese Chapman in right field. Reese Chapman could also be in this conversation. I think he could very much be an X factor for Tennessee. But Jay Abernathy is a guy that just could not stay off the field in the fall. He came to Tennessee as a middle infielder. There's a need in left field. There's a need at DH. There's a need for base running and pinch hitting. And, Jay Abernathy from the left side's got sneaky power. He might be one of the fastest guys to ever be coached by Tony Vitello. Made a couple of great diving catches, outfield assists, and center and in left field in the fall. He's going to be in the lineup. Is it going to be at left field? Is it going to be as a pinch hitter? Is it going to be as a DH? I don't know. We'll figure it out. But he's a guy that fans are absolutely going to know about. So I'll go Jay Abernathy from the lineup. I said Reese Chapman earlier. People know who Reese Chapman is, but I think he could be an X factor. On the hill, you can go a number of different ways here. I think one of those JUCO arms it's got to be. I mean, is it going to be Arvidsson? Is it going to be Wiggins? Is it going to be Crabtree? Is it going to be Sharman? Is it going to be Combs? Not all those guys are going to hit, right? I mean, it's just how you recruit. In football, not all of your 4 stars hit. 1 or 2 of those guys will be quote-unquote busts. It's just kind of how it is. Marcus Phillips, he had his moments last year, but he's got to take a step this year. And he's coming from the same junior college rank as these guys. So a couple of these guys are going to have to help Tennessee out an awful lot. We've already talked about Arvidsson some, so I guess I'll go with give me Michael Sharman. Of the junior college bunch, I don't think anybody talks about him at all. He had incredible numbers at the JUCO level last year, had a really, really good fall. I think he's a guy that's flying under the radar that I think can help Tennessee in the bullpen for sure.
I know it's a different spelling too, Eric, but the NIL opportunities with Sharman, we might need to look into that for for Michael there. Eric, again, there's a stat out there, and I'm not going to try to, spit it out off the top of my head. I don't know the exact percentages, but the bottom line is this. It seems as if teams win the College World Series, and then it's very hard the following year to get back to Omaha. And again, it's just hard to get to Omaha, period, like you mentioned earlier, but that's obviously what the expectation is, and certainly I think it should be at this point the expectation for Tony Vitello in this club. If that's going to happen, when you look at this team, again, there's questions in the lineup, there's questions in the pitching staff. If this team is going to make a return to Omaha in 2025, in your mind, Eric, what has to click for the Vols?
Yeah, I mean, they've got, I mean, outside of pitching and hitting and timely runs and all that, I mean, that's basic. Like, I think more than anything, this locker room's got to stay together. In 2023, this locker room went through a lot of adversity. This dugout, whatever you want to call it, and then they came together, and then they were playing their best ball, and they weren't all best friends, but they figured it out. And there was a lot of talent on that team, but the way it started, I mean, Tennessee had to go on an incredible run the back half of SEC play even to punch its ticket, and it did, and it ended SEC play with a 16-14 record. They started 5-10. I mean, it was one of the best closes of all time, and then they ended up getting to Omaha. But there was a lot of adversity, and the players trying to gel together and all that early in the season. And I think you see a lot of that from ball clubs that won a national title or made a deep run the year before. I mean, the year before for Tennessee, they didn't go to Omaha, but they were statistically, and everybody thought it's the best team in college baseball history, maybe. And of course, Notre Dame upsets them in the Supers. So I think it's handling the adversity and being selfless and being a team guy. I was able to catch up with Ross Kivett, who's an assistant coach at Tennessee, and we were talking about a specific player, and he said, alphas don't mind to move around the diamond. Alphas will do whatever is best for the team, and you're going to have a couple of guys like that. Dalton Bargo, is he a first baseman? Is he your DH? If left field's not figured out, can Dalton Bargo be your everyday left fielder? We'll figure it out. I just think that the leadership of Hunter Ensley, of Cannon Peebles, of Nate Snead, I mean, they're going to have incredible leadership this year, because I do think they're going to go through some growing pains in a big way. Hopefully not 5-10 to begin SEC play. I don't think that's going to happen, but I just think they need to stay together, have that mindset, and attack every single day. Again, that's kind of an offbeat answer. I mean, you got to have timely runs. You got to have good pitching. You got Dean Curley's got to find Cannon Peebles got to bounce back in a huge way. Reese Chapman cannot get off to a slow start out of the gates. All that's true, but I think this club needs to stick together because there's a lot of turnover, a lot of change. There's going to be some adversity, and they're the national champion, the reigning national champions now. But I still think they've had a target on their, on the back of their head for the last 4 or 5 years. That's obviously even magnified now because they have the trophy to show for it. So, again, I'm super excited to see what this team looks like, and I think what we see on February 14th could be very different on March 14th and should be different again on April 14th.
Eric Cain, Volquest.com, Locked On Vols. Eric, one last thing, and I'll get you at it because you bring up a really interesting point. And we've seen it from the fan base, obviously. There's a chip on the shoulder when it comes to Tennessee fans. How does Tony V keep this team and this program hungry? It's a brand new group, like you mentioned, but we hear it across all sports. We hear coaches talk about it, the whole complacency thing. Like, I just think the message going into last year is let's finish the job of what was it, 2022 team didn't do. We've never won one before. Now you're seeing Tony V got the new contract. Lindsey Nelson Stadium Lindsey Nelson's going to look incredibly different. The investment in baseball is there now for Tennessee. Like, what's kind of in your mind, just being around the guys, being around the team, like, what's the message? Like, and do you sense that same hunger being there? Like, they're still going for that first one, if that makes sense.
Yeah, kind of a sidebar. You were talking about all the investment in this program. Maybe I'm biased. I mean, I know I cover the team, so maybe I can be blinded. Or it's either like if you cover a team on a daily basis, you're either so over the top or you always take a pessimistic route because you know all the warts. But I don't think anybody in the country is more invested in baseball than Tennessee. Now, hear me out here. Okay, like other programs have larger budgets. Other programs have nicer stadiums. Other programs have, I'm not going to say anybody's got a better coach than Tony V right now, but you know what I'm saying? But, like, look at his contract extension. Look at his staff. He went back and brought in Ross Kivett. Ricky Martinez comes back. You're keeping guys around the program like Ethan Payne, Kirby Cannell, Frank Anderson still here. A sitting pitching coach at a Power 4 level is now director of ops here at Tennessee. I mean, his staff, his support staff, the budget for name, image, and likeness resources, and then the stadium. When you compile all that together, I'd be hard-pressed to find any program in America that's more invested into baseball right now. So that's a sidebar. Tony Vitello, we met with him. We met with the media a couple of days ago, and he talked a lot about that. He was like, winning national title, it's like, I love Tennessee fans. Love it. We're going to party. We're going to party all year long. We're going to party every day. It's great. The one caveat to that is, well, it's time to roll your sleeves up and go to work again. We got to move on. We're kind of getting tired of the parades and the talking about it. He said when we came back in January, he was like, I didn't say a word to him. He's like, I don't know if it was Hunter Inslee or Cannon Peebles or whoever it was. They just got that, lunch pail, hard hat mentality. They want to get to work. They want to put their own stamp on this Tennessee baseball legacy. They want to be their own team. And so, according to Tony, he hadn't said anything. It's just kind of that mindset. It's that leadership of, that was great. Now we know what it takes to win a national title. We learned some lessons. We know how to go about this. 2024 was awesome. Now it's 2025, and we're gonna write our own script on how we're gonna be and how we're gonna be remembered. And I think that is the motivation for this baseball team. So anytime your coaches don't have to step up and say, all right, boys, let's flip the script, it's player-led, I think that's a great thing, and that's kind of where Tennessee is right now. I think this team is super competitive, super ready to work and prove that, hey, we're a team that can get back to Omaha and go on a run as well, just like our former teammates did last year.
There you have it. Once again, Eric Cain, Volquest.com, Locked On Vols. Eric does fantastic work. Eric, just in case the folks have been living under a rock, let them know where they can find all your work.
Yep, on the X at _Cainer. It's still weird to say X instead of Twitter, but on the X at _Cainer. Of course, daily podcast. We talk baseball a lot, especially now, basketball, football year-round at Locked On Vols. And over at Volquest.com, the Tennessee affiliate of the On3 Network. Everything Tennessee baseball there at Volquest.com.
Eric, appreciate you taking the time, man. Look forward to seeing you at Lindsey Nelson really soon.
Sounds good, man. Thanks so much. And you'll be upgraded seat. You'll have a better seat this year, so congrats to you.
Indeed.